The Six Nations is only 1 week away, guys. I hope you're all getting very excited. Today I'm dropping the ultimate preview. I'm going through each of the teams. I'm going to look at all of the keys to victory. And at the very, very end of the series, I am going to predict who will win this tournament this year. Kia ora everyone, my name is Zach. I love rugby. Welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. Okay guys, slightly different format today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do one video on each of the teams and release them 1 hour after another. I'm going to go through all of the talking points, guys. I'm going to look at the squad selections, the omissions, the strategies that have been successful for them in the past, what they need to do in the future, some of the key talking points, and what are the keys to victory for each of these teams. The very last video I produce, as I mentioned today, will be my final prediction on who will win this tournament. So please follow along, guys. If you want to follow along, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications as well on when each of these videos drops. And get involved in the conversation below, guys. I want to know what you think, how you think the tournament will play out, what the keys to victory are for each of these teams. Now, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to get into it right now, and let's get started with England. Okay, guys, right off the bat, we have to face facts. England come in as probably the favorite team to win this year's Six Nations tournament. They had a fantastic 2019, obviously going down in the final of the Rugby World Cup, but they had great performances at quarterfinal level and at semi-final level to really cement themselves as one of the best teams in world rugby right now. Eddie Jones is retained this year. Obviously, he's here for another 2 years, but he has made it adamantly clear he believes this English rugby team can go on to be the best team to ever play the game of rugby. Now, that is huge aspirations, right? And over 100 years of rugby to be the very, very best. Lofty aspirations. It's going to be interesting to see how that expectation translates to this team as we build up through both this tournament but into future years. But what I like about this English team is last year they were able to do incredible things with what is a relatively young squad. There is not too many changes in the matchday 23 this year, guys. They have the luxury of bringing in 8 new uncapped players, but there is a settled feel about the 23 that will compete in the major games this year. They don't lose too many players along the way. There are some omissions. Obviously, Billy Vunipola went down recently injured with a forearm injury after that game against Racing 92. That's a big loss. Someone who carries a lot of the obviously the physical attacking presence there, ball running capability there. He really carries a lot of that workload in attack to put defenses on the back foot. But it's a good opportunity to develop other players in that area as well, with senior guys around them to support them in the development aspect of the game. Other omissions, a guy like Dan Coles misses out, unfortunately not named in the squad this year. Obviously, if we look back to that final of the Rugby World Cup, he had a very difficult time there against the Springboks. We did a video on this channel about the scrum battle, so go check that out if you'd like to know more. But it looks like Eddie is going in a direction to try and improve the set piece overall with the makeup of this squad. There are genuine match winners throughout the squad, guys. Guys like Maro Itoje, we know how good he is. Guys like Manu Tuilangi, we know how good he is. Genuine finishes on the wings with Watson and May. Great fly halves, both at George Ford as well as Owen Farrell. Guys like Kyle Sinclair, Maro Itoje, great with ball in hand. There is just threat across the park. I didn't even mention the Kamikaze twins in in Underhill and Curry. There is just real strike throughout this team. They were able to put it all together last year, and we've got no reason to believe that they won't do it again this year. It's going to be very, very interesting what comes in selections and strategy that Eddie looks to implement this year. I'm concerned, my only concern for England this year, there's two actually. One, significant expectation put on this team through Eddie Jones, saying you want to be the best rugby team to ever play the game is lofty aspirations. Whether or not you can do it remains to be seen. Not only that, but how the players will respond to a target like that. Now, they may come in and galvanise around it, they may not. We don't know. But there is a significant amount of expectation, I think, will be placed on this English rugby team, and how they deal with that pressure will be really interesting, I guess, as we look forward this year. The other thing is, when I look at the performance in the Rugby World Cup final, I did think that Eddie Jones tried to over-engineer some of the outcomes there. He did make it clear that one of the lessons he would take forward is that he should have refreshed the team slightly with some selections, different selections there in the final, bring that different energy. Now, he's certainly done that with the makeup of the squad and 8 new caps in this rugby side, but what else does he have up his sleeve? I'm concerned that he may try to over-engineer the success of this team. They've already got a game plan that has been very, very successful. In my view, the evolution of this team to be one of the greatest teams in the world is slight tweaks. There are obviously limitations in the set piece that need to be fixed. We saw that in the final of the Rugby World Cup. And there are other strings that they can add to the bow in attack. But tinkering too much with this team, I think, would be a real mistake. I've heard Eddie Jones talk about moving Maro Itoje into the loose. Obviously, with Vunipola out, they will be looking for someone to move into that role. Now, if he does that, I think that's very much development focused. I don't think that's a long-term home for Itoje. But I also think that's a big mistake, right? Because this is one of the world's best locks. Certainly one of the most athletic locks in world rugby. And you get so much benefit with having a guy like that performing in the second row where other second rowers can't do what he can. He was a menace in that semi-final against New Zealand. You know, he almost gives you a loose forward option in terms of athleticism and ability to win ball at the breakdown that a lot of teams do not have the luxury of having. If you move him into the loose, you're essentially taking away that advantage. I don't like that move. If the idea is to ensure that you've got coverage in the loose, an additional coverage option, and develop some coverage there, that's fine. But I think trying to move one of the best players in the world in this position out of position is always a mistake. We've seen it time and time again in New Zealand rugby, believe me. So I think they need to keep relatively settled but add a few extra strings to the bow. That's my recommendation for England. But they certainly come in here as one of the favourite teams to win it all. The other thing, they have a very, very favourable draw. They're playing both Ireland and Wales, who are probably the two most competitive teams in this tournament at home in Twickenham. And that's a huge advantage as they look forward to that aspiration of winning the tournament this year. Particularly a team like Wales, who has had the wood over England, I think, in 2019. Playing them at home is going to be huge for them. So there is a lot of upside to this English team. In my view, it is steady as she goes. Don't try and over-engineer the outcome. You know, give an opportunity for some of these younger players to come through. There's been a lot made in New Zealand around the inclusion of Jacob Umaga. I will say to New Zealand fans, Jacob Umaga was born in England. Obviously, he is the nephew of Tana Umaga, one of the great All Black centres. But he is very much an Englishman, developed, trained in England. He played the season in New Zealand in NPC level, but he's a product of English rugby. So his inclusion here is no surprises for those who follow English rugby. And I think he's an exciting talent who, you know, it's great to see the Umaga name out there again at the top levels of rugby. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he develops into a world-class playmaker. And he'll certainly get his opportunities this year, guys. The great thing about the Six Nations format is that there is opportunities for, you know, those established teams to really push forward and compete, but also for players to get game time in a development aspect throughout the tournament. So there's a lot to watch here, a lot to look forward to, guys. But in my opinion, England are one of the favourites to win this tournament without a doubt. That's part one of the series done, guys. As I mentioned, part two will be dropping in exactly 1 hour. So make sure you subscribe to this channel so you will get notifications on that video releasing. If you like this video as well, guys, hit like, subscribe to the channel, please, and get involved in the comments below. I want to hear everything that you have to say, and let's get the discussion going. See you guys back here in part two very soon. We're going to talk about France next.